Let's jump right into today's explainer. We're looking at some absolutely fascinating research on why highly capable, intelligent minds so often stumble over the most basic parts of everyday life. Honestly, when I first read the science behind this, it completely changed how I view my own brain. So let's get right to it.
Seriously, have you ever found yourself flawlessly executing some massive project at work or school? Completely in the zone, only to realize hours later that you forgot to eat lunch? Or maybe you navigated a huge crisis perfectly, but then completely blanked on paying a basic utility bill. Or you just can't seem to remember to grab milk from the store. It's incredibly frustrating, right? You start asking yourself, how on earth can I be so capable at the big things, yet completely drop the ball on the easy stuff?
Which brings us to Section 1, the genius contradiction.
So researchers actually call this the genius contradiction. The truth is, you aren't lazy and you definitely aren't broken. Your brain is just operating on this hidden level of efficiency. Think about it like this. On one hand, your digital files or complex projects are flawlessly structured. But on the other hand, your physical workspace, it might look like a tornado just blew through. Now, to an outside observer, that looks like pure chaos. But your brain is actually making a highly calculated choice to ignore those surface-level details. Why? So it can fiercely preserve its energy for deep, complex thinking.
And the crucial takeaway here is this concept of selective organization. While a lot of people try to keep absolutely every single area of their life perfectly ordered, a high IQ brain operates a bit differently. It purposefully ignores the mundane to reserve its intense energy only for what truly matters.
Moving on to Section 2, filtering out meaningless labels.
Let's see how this exact same filter applies to things we hear every single day. Cognitive psychology categorizes things like a person's name or a random date as arbitrary labels. Basically, to your brain, these things just don't carry any inherent meaning or useful structural data. So what happens? Your brain just tosses them out. It doesn't encode them strongly because it vastly prefers deep knowledge. Like, you might completely forget the name of someone you literally met 5 minutes ago, but you'll vividly remember their complex personality or the incredibly intricate career story they just told you. If the information feels random and meaningless, a high IQ mind just doesn't bother holding on to it.
Section 3, overthinking and cognitive exhaustion. But okay, what happens when you actually have to do one of these simple tasks? Why does a basic 5-minute chore sometimes feel overwhelmingly difficult? Well, it all comes down to cognitive complexity. When you look at a simple chore, your brain doesn't just see the chore itself. Instead, it naturally examines this massive branching web of related variables, consequences, and angles that other people would completely miss. It's essentially an overactive processing engine examining every single possibility.
And all that constant background overanalysis? It consumes massive amounts of your cognitive bandwidth. That's the limited mental energy your brain has available for focus, action, and just basic peace of mind. Because you're processing so much data and overanalyzing a simple task until it becomes physically draining, you end up completely exhausted. By the time you actually need to take physical action, your brain is absolutely fatigued from the sheer mental weight of all those possibilities.
To put that into perspective, just think about how that bandwidth is actually allocated. You're dedicating a staggering 90% of your mental energy to the weight of complex possibilities, leaving this tiny 10% trickle for surface-level tasks. Your brain simply doesn't have the fuel left for the mundane stuff after running a mental marathon all day.
Section 4, obsession and mental progress.
To truly understand where all that energy goes, we have to look at the brain's internal reward system. See, your brain is heavily driven by curiosity. Learning complex information triggers a literal dopamine reward, which creates these short bursts of deep, laser-focused obsession. And because you're in this incredibly rewarding state, simple tasks, like folding the laundry, literally just feel like offensive interruptions to your genius. You aren't forgetting the laundry, you're just prioritizing depth and meaning.
Which brings us to Section 5, confusing thinking with progress.
This leads to a really fascinating trick the high IQ mind plays on itself. It's this mental loophole that stops you right in your tracks. Basically, step 1. Your mental simulations are so incredibly detailed that you vividly imagine doing the simple task. Then, step 2, because that mental planning is so thorough, it gives you a false sense of achievement, and your brain actually releases a hit of dopamine as if the work were already done. And finally, step 3, with that internal reward secured, your biological urgency to act completely disappears. You stay attached to the potential of the task, mostly because the reality of doing it feels super unrewarding compared to just thinking about it.
Section 6, the psychology of reframing.
So how does all of this build to a mindset shift regarding your own capabilities? Well, it means you aren't just forgetting things. You're actually utilizing a psychological strategy called cognitive offloading. This is the strategic discarding of mundane details and surface-level tasks. Your brain is doing this on purpose to prioritize your psychological safety and ensure you have mental capacity left over for the things that truly compound and matter in your life.
It perfectly ties into this idea that being guarded with your attention isn't a flaw. It's a survival skill. We live in a world filled with constant, exhausting noise and endless surface-level demands. Ignoring the simple stuff is exactly what allows your mind to stay sharp, protected, and fully capable of operating at that incredibly high level of cognitive complexity.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought as we wrap up this explainer. Take a look around your space right now. What mundane task is your brain smartly avoiding to protect its genius? The next time you forget a name or ignore a messy desk, give yourself a little grace. It's really just your brain making room for the big ideas. But it does make you wonder, what other perceived flaws might actually be your brain's greatest hidden strengths? Thanks for exploring this with me. Until next time, keep questioning how you work.